Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. This was a huge day for XRP holders. And if you're looking at the screen right now, you can already see that XRP is the #1 performing coin out of the top 10 coins by market cap over the last 24 hours, now up just over 5%, with most of the other coins treading water or up maybe 1 to 2%. And I'm going to cover the news events pertaining specifically to XRP in a separate video. And oh yes, there's lots of great stuff to unpack there. But in this video, I'm going to be focusing more so on what's going on in the market. I'm going to share with you perspective from, I think, 8 different XRP chart analysts, including one who says XRP is going to $15, and this is going to be the final expansion, meaning yes, the best is yet ahead. This happening on a day when macros playing nice, let's say. All sorts of new all-time highs, major confluence. This is exactly what you would want and expect to see if we're going to see a final parabolic blow off top for this crypto asset class, which historically is the norm. If we don't see a crazy face-melting rally for altcoins to cap off this cycle, then this time is different. And those are famous last words, because we have seen that at the peak of every single other cycle going back over 16 years now in the crypto asset class. It'd be insane for that not to happen. And humans to display markedly different behavior than they ever have before because of reasons? Yeah, I don't think so. And the market's in fear right now. There are so many fearful people despite what has just happened today. I mean, maybe the sentiment's starting to shift a little bit after today. We'll see. Now, all that said, and look, I don't know for sure what's going to happen. Of course I don't, and I admit that. I'm just a dude on the internet. I'm not a finance guy myself. I'm just like the rest of you. I'm just telling you my opinion because it's fun to talk about this stuff. I'm in the camp of absolutely we are going to see a final rally to the upside. That said, there are a handful of analysts that I follow and respect who are warning that at least in the short term, there's a possibility you could see a dip before you rally to the upside. Not that most of the analysts I follow think that, but even out of that group of analysts, even they will tell you, yeah, you could see a pullback, but we're still going to rally higher. There's only one analyst I follow who says, no, we're almost certainly entering a bear market. But before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. As I record this video, it is 7:32 p.m. Central Time, which is my time zone. It is Friday, October 24th, 2025. XRP up to $2.51, Bitcoin at $110,931. And here's some news that got the market moving. Here's the headline from CNBC. Inflation rate hit 3% in September, lower than expected, long-awaited CPI report shows. And they cite here, and I'm just going to read the bullet points here because that's sufficient for the purposes of this video. The consumer price index showed a 0.3% increase on the month, putting the annual inflation rate at 3%, both lower than expected. Ah, yes, the market likey. Excluding food and energy, core CPI showed a 0.2% monthly gain and an annual rate also at 3%, less than forecast. The Bureau of Labor Statistics released the data specifically because the Social Security Administration uses it as a benchmark for cost of living adjustments in benefit checks. Otherwise, the federal government has suspended all data compilation during the shutdown. Yes, that's the only reason that we've gotten this, although I certainly do suspect that this government shutdown is going to end sooner than later. It's largely performative. When this happens, most of the government actually stays open. I don't know that most people understand that. That's why, like, the term government shutdown, it's a bit of a misnomer. Certain things shut down, like national parks. Okay, some people do get furloughed, and it sucks if you're one of those people. But the government's still running, and they'll shut down stuff like this. Like reporting. The SEC, obviously, they come back, so you're not seeing approvals for like the XRP ETF, for example. So there are things. I'm not saying there are no consequences to this, but it's largely performative, and it happens once every 2 years, roughly, a little over 2 years on average. And then funding comes back and the deals are worked out. And so it's coming. Just sit tight a little bit longer. It's going to get worked out. It always does. Here's a post from the Kabasi letter. Breaking: the odds of 2 more interest rate cuts in 2025 surge to a record high 85%. As the data blackout continues, labor market deteriorates, and CPI comes in cooler than expected, the Fed must cut rates. There is no other option. And so they wrote that, sharing a post from Kalshi, a betting market. It wrote, breaking: odds of 3 rate cuts in 2025 reach an all-time high of 85%. And right or wrong, the market views this as very good. Unquestionably, they do. So we should be getting another one this month and then another one in December. There is no FOMC meeting in the month of November, so there's no opportunity for a rate cut in November. Here's another post from the Kabasi letter. Breaking: love to see this. The S&P 500 officially breaks above 6,800 for the first time in history, now up over plus 40% since the April 2025 bottom. The S&P 500 has now added $17 trillion of market cap in 6 months. Folks, that's a lot. That's a big move for the S&P 500. Legacy finance inside of 1 year. I mean, more precisely, about half a year. The S&P 500 up 40%. Now, of course, that's from I think it was the April 7th was the bottom, and that was because of the tariff scare. That's the reason that was possible. But like I said back then, like, love it or hate it, President Trump used that scare tactic as just that, a scare tactic. It's a negotiating tactic. There was no world in which he was going to, tariff everyone literally into oblivion. He comes out swinging out of the gates, and then he negotiates, and then comes to a position that's much more rational. That's what he consistently does. That's why when we had a couple weeks ago that crash, the biggest liquidation event in crypto history at $20 billion and markets plummeted, that's why I said, guys, okay, crypto market did what it did. This is stupid and people have not learned. And I understand that, this had to do with leverage primarily. But there were, stop losses and cascading on down. There was that too. And then there were some people panic selling. I was just saying, like, do people not learn? He's posturing here. Just wait. There's going to be some sort of deal made. There's not going to be 100% tariff on China on top of what we already have here, which was what was initially reported he did. It's not happening, folks. It's just not happening. And also, more importantly, the Russell 2000 went up. And of course, this matters because that's small cap stocks. And if the Russell 2000 truly breaks out, you know what happens when that happens, right? Historically, that's when alt season occurs. So we got a new all-time high today, not just for the S&P 500, but also for the Russell 2000. Now, we haven't seen a full-on breakout, so we do need to see a continuation, but this is a good sign. I'm very happy to see this. Again, this demonstrates an increased appetite for risk on, and specifically going further out the risk curve. And so when people are happy to go so far out the risk curve that they'll buy the small cap stocks, at the same time, that's when they have an appetite for altcoins, including XRP. That's why this matters. There is a correlation, and it's because it's the same type of investor that's buying these assets. That is exactly why. So happy to see that. And then there was a post from somebody named Joe Burnett who wrote, what if it's all about the business cycle? And the business cycle, of course, is a metric which correlates perfectly, at least in history up to this point. The peak of the business cycle, that particular metric, has correlated perfectly with the peak of Bitcoin and thus the the entire crypto asset class. We have not seen the business cycle metric flip to the upside. And so Julian Biddle, who's posting the chart that's on your screen here, along with Raoul Paul and TechDev and a few others, they're arguing that we're seeing a lengthening cycle based on debt refinancing changing from 4 years, which is what caused the 4-year crypto cycle. That has now switched into 5 years thanks to the stuff that happened during the pandemic. It's pushed that out further. And as a result of that, you're going to see the business cycle peak in 2026. And thus, that is why they are arguing you're going to see Bitcoin and thus, again, the crypto asset class, the whole entire crypto market, you're going to see it peak in 2026. That is their thesis. So we'll see if they're correct, but the correlation does exist. It unquestionably does. And that's when you see ISM, that's what this is. That's the business cycle. And this chart's going back to 1998, and it's showing a correlation with the Russell 2000 small cap stocks. Again, this is going back 27 years. You can see this, right? The correlation is real. That's 27 years worth of data. That's not a fluke. We also know that, the Russell 2000, absolutely, when that thing starts going, altcoins start going. So, unless you think that what the business cycle, it's not going to be. What do you think is going to happen here? I mean, it would be very peculiar if this were different. That's why I find the thesis from Julian Biddle and Raoul Paul, Tech Dev, I find it to be rather compelling. I don't know for sure if it's right, and they don't either, but they're sharing it with you, their conviction, what they think is probable, which I think is, I say fair enough on that. And it makes sense. This is what causes the timing that we've been seeing. It just is. It just is. So that's a good thing. It's not that this time is different if it spills into 2026. It's that it's the same thing because it's the business cycle that is the metric. That and global liquidity is what you need to look at to figure out when this thing's likely to peak. So this time is not different if it goes into 2026. Yeah, the time, you can say the timing's different compared to previously, but what causes the timing? That's what's more important. The factors that cause the timing to be what it is, that's what matters, not the timing itself in a vacuum. There are things that cause the timing to be what it is. Those things are not different. And so, yeah, Julian Biddle simply wrote, it is. Because again, the question was from Joe Burnett. What if it's all about the business cycle? Julian Biddle, it is. And there's the data. Hard to dispute that. Here's a post from Ryan Dietrich. He's the chief market strategist at Carson Group. And he's shown some data from the S&P 500. It shows the average year for the S&P 500 after a 20% year gain, which we had last year. Last year, the S&P 500 was up about 23%, which doesn't happen that frequently, but it did. And so what they're doing here is they're showing what the average S&P 500 gain looks like the year after you get a 20% gain. So that's where we'd be right now. And so Ryan Dietrich shared this, and he said, Q1 weakness is perfectly normal after a 20% year. This is one reason we remained overweight equities when others were telling you a recession was coming. What is also common? A big end of year rally starting right about now. And if you're looking at the screen, you can see why he's talking about that. This point where I'm moving my mouse right here, that's the end of October. You see how it rockets up? Look at that. It's very obvious to see if you have at least one functioning human eyeball. You can see that. And this data is going back to 1950, mind you. So if the S&P 500 is going to go up, why do you think the crypto market has peaked? And it's not that we know for sure that's going to happen, but it's about probability of outcomes. History rhymes with itself. When people are put in situations that are similar to past situations, they have the same DNA, the same tendencies. If you have a large enough sample size, they tend to do roughly the same thing. So if you just bet in general in that direction, you're mostly going to be right. If you spot instances that are very similar to past instances, it's reasonable to speculate that what is probable, though not certain, is that you're going to get the same or similar outcome. So yeah, I'm betting that we're going to see this thing rally. I don't think that the market's over. I do not think that we've hit the peak. We will be hitting a peak at some point. I'm not a perma-bull. I think that at some point it's going to make sense to be concerned. Things are going to get overheated. There will be all sorts of metrics indicating the market is flipping to a territory where you need to start to be a little bit queasy when you're looking at the data. We're not there yet, though. I'm just not seeing it. And if you look at CoinMarketCap, it tracks 30 metrics that are top crypto cycle top indicators. 0 out of 30 of those metrics have flipped. So do they just not work anymore? They worked in all the other cycles, but now they don't work anymore because reasons. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't find that to be the most probable. Here's another post from Ryan Dietrich. He said, 2 Fridays ago, stocks fell 3% on talks that Trump/Xi, that's the Chinese president, of course, wouldn't meet. Last Friday, the VIX soared to nearly 29 on fears about cockroaches, BDCs, and regional banks. October's job is to scare investors out of their positions before the year-end rally. Mission accomplished. Yeah, and he's right about that. The market is fearful despite all of this. Like, how frequently do you see the market rampaging up to all-time highs and then people are in fear? How frequently does that happen? Well, not usually. Certainly not usually. So does it make sense to be fearful here? I don't think so, but the market is. We'll see. And this is not how peaks form. At the peak of every other market cycle, even if you're just talking about crypto, It's euphoric. The top happens when everybody thinks it'll never stop going up, not when everybody's in fear. It just doesn't make any damn sense. Here's a post from chart analyst Tony Severino. He says, not going to lie, the S&P 500 looks like it's going to turn that blow-off top idea into reality. 7 days left to close like this or better. And so here's another analyst that's like, yeah, we're going to rip to the upside, almost certainly. Here's a post from on-chain analytics firm Sentiment. And we'll be getting into some XRP specific stuff, so hang with me here. It says, retailers are pessimistic on crypto heading into the weekend, comparing cryptocurrency discussions on social media containing lower or below, which would be blue, or red, higher or above. The pattern implies a price rise price is more probable because the crowd is a contrarian signal. Yep, that's certainly the truth. And the market is fearful right now. Here's a post from Charting Guy, and this resonated with me. This is certainly true. He wrote, I have never seen a bear market where the market gives you so long to get out of your bags near highs. Stocks constantly hit new all-time highs. Top 5 cryptos are 1 fib level away from price discovery. Bitcoin dominance flipping bearish higher time frame. Fed flipping to easing. Those are all excellent points. And if this really were the end, if you've looked at the data, even if you weren't here, if you look at the data from previous cycles, you can see that when the peak was hit for the crypto market, it precipitously drops after that. Prices crater rather quickly. Why then, if we're entering a bear market, have we been given months and months and months to get the hell out of this thing? Or even if you're just going to look, even if you're going to look at just when Bitcoin hit its most recent all-time high near $126,000, when was that? Like over a month ago now? When was that? I don't remember off the top of my head. It's been a long time though. Why is the market giving us so long to get the hell out of our positions and take profit? That's never happened before. That's a little bit different. And at a time when stocks are hitting all-time highs, and top 5 cryptos are like hinting at price discovery, and Bitcoin dominance hasn't even fallen off a cliff yet, but it has in every single other previous cycle. And the Bitcoin dominance is flipping bearish, which is great, even though the price of Bitcoin can go up as that happens. And then you've got easing happening. I mean, we'll see if actual easing happens. I mean, certainly as far as rates, yeah, we already know what's happening with that. There's been a rate cut. And there's going to be 2 more almost certainly this year. I just don't buy the argument that we're entering a bear market. I do not buy it. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I could be. I'm just a dude on the internet. You know, it's not like my opinion's more important than anyone else's. But it is my channel, so I'm telling you what I think. And that is genuinely what I think. I don't think it makes the most sense to believe that we're entering a bear market. Here's a post from Alex Wasey, popular chart analyst with 197,000 followers on X. This is altcoins priced against Ethereum. It's the others ETH chart. And he says, alts have never been this oversold in crypto history. Yeah, look down here. Look at that. It says not in 2021, not in 2023, not in 2024. Every time it ends the same, up only. Will this time be different? Well, I don't think so. I think that alts are going to just rip to the upside, and XRP is going to be one of the biggest beneficiaries of that environment. That's what I'm expecting. Here's a post from chart analyst Mustache. This is the total 3 chart. That's the name of the chart that shows the crypto asset class excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. And he says, total 3 is holding one of the most important levels ever, and crypto Twitter is behaving as if we were in a bear market. Altcoins equal higher. And what you can see what he's highlighting here, look at this particular line of support, which was resistance. It's the 2021 all-time high for total 3. It's gone up and come back down to test it as support, and we are above it right now. So that's why he's like, guys, this is holding higher, ultimately higher. Here's the post from chart analyst Crypto Wizard. And this is the others chart. It's the crypto total market cap, excluding the top 10 coins by market cap. And he says, don't you see? Bears, I would consider getting an eye test. We've seen this structure before in others, right before a parabolic explosion upside. Even the liquidation occurred. Crisis brings opportunity to those who have conviction. Yep, spot on. So he's just arguing that structurally what's happening right now we have seen in a previous cycle. That's all. The main rally, it is coming. And again, if history is to rhyme with itself, yeah, we absolutely should expect that. Here's a post from chart analyst Mikey Bull Crypto. XRP USD chart here. He says, I'd love to read this. XRP is in preparation for the final expansion phase this cycle. The red band target stands at $7, and if it extends, that should be $11 to $15. So he actually is one of the more conservative XRP analysts that I follow, because he thinks it's a possibility we don't quite hit 10, but he believes there's a very real chance that we could hit upwards of $15. So I don't make price predictions myself. I never have. I never will. That's just not my shtick because I'm not a chart guy myself. So there's no point in it. But like you, I have my conviction. If I didn't have a conviction that XRP would go higher, then why the hell would I hold it? You don't need to be a chart guy to believe that. And I do believe it's going to go higher, including this market cycle. And I don't think that the analysts predicting double-digit price action for XRP this cycle are crazy. We'll see if it happens. I don't know. But the concept of that is safely confined. It's safely supplanted within the confines of reality. Of that, I have no doubt. Certainly not. Here's a post from chart analyst Ether National. Got XRP on your screen. The chart on the left is 2017. The right is 2025. And he says, XRP history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. After its major trend breakout in 2017, XRP initiated a two-stage parabolic run. Wave first, followed by reaccumulation, and then wave second. Today, the picture looks surprisingly similar. Some cycles don't just repeat, they are reborn. I've seen so many analysts pointing this out recently, and I'm happy to continue to parrot the message on my channel because I talked about this for years leading up to this cycle because you don't need to be a chart guy to understand the concept. History rhymes with itself, and typically, yes, look back here in 2017, you get a huge move up, then you move sideways, and there's accumulation phase, consolidation, then you get the final phase. The second one here, the second major leg up, is way more important than the first one in terms of dollar increase in price. So that's again why I keep saying double-digit price action ain't crazy. We went from 49 cents to $3.65, but even if you just want to consider the first leg to be peaking at $3.40 in January, that's fine. That's a big move. That's awesome. But in terms of dollar increase, historically, the second pump is way bigger. That second wave, we haven't had it yet. So if the first one brought us, $3 higher than where we were roughly, well, what's this going to be? Is it going to be like $6 higher, 7, 8? I don't know, but none of that's crazy. And there's way more than enough money in the world to make that happen. And there should certainly be enough money in the crypto space to make that happen if we're going to have an actual alt season. It'd be weird if it didn't, frankly. Anyway, and that post I just shared with you was reposted by ChartNerd. And ChartNerd wrote, XRP is currently in accumulation. Once it breaks, double digits are more than likely great outlook. So there's another analyst that agrees. And this is based on historic precedent. It won't be crazy if this indeed ends up coming to pass. Even if we're in an extended cycle and we're having to wait a little bit longer through this accumulation phase, okay, that's fine. There's rationale for that if you buy into what Rob Paul and Julian Bittler at TechDev are talking about. And they could be right. It's a reasonable thesis at a minimum. ChartNerd also wrote, XRP must break $2.60 before the race back towards all-time highs can begin. $2.20/$2 remains the support zone. So hopefully we don't dip that low again. Of course, if the rest of the market goes down, XRP is just going to go with it. But there you go, key levels cited by ChartNerd. And here's a post from chart analyst Cryptolica, and he's just been beating the same drum over and over again. I'm just highlighting this because just to point out that he hasn't changed his perspective despite what's happened recently. But he's predicting XRP is going to hit at least $10 this market cycle, $10 plus. Chart analyst Javon Marks here says, due to the extreme similarities in XRP's price structure to a previous bull run, he says $9.90 looks to be up next for prices to push, and they may not stop there. That's an over 309% increase from here. Buckle up. So he's talking about close to $10 price action. Now, he's one of the analysts that is comparing the accumulation range we're in now to this much shorter, if you want to call it, pause in the first run up in XRP. I'm not a chart analyst myself, fine, but I'm skeptical of that being the proper comparison. I think the proper comparison should be after this whole first major leg up, and then you had a 6-month consolidation here. I think that's where we are right now, and then you get one major pump. Now, if he's right, then you're talking about having 2 more legs up after this. Now, I'm skeptical of that being the case, but I'm not afraid to share, varying perspectives from XRP chart analysts. And to his credit, like, he is one of the analysts that accurately called XRP breaking out this market cycle. But my suspicion is we're more like where I'm moving my mouse here right now, where he had that 6-month accumulation back in 2017 before breaking out higher. Then there was this from chart analyst Steph is Crypto. He says the next wave higher for XRP will be epic, and you can see he's pointing for a final burst here to $10. And not that I say that's for the structure that he's charting on your screen right here. He's not saying that it has to peak at $10. In fact, he's optimistic that XRP could peak over $30 this particular market cycle. So he's more on the bullish side. Any of the analysts that I'm willing to follow. Then there's this post from chart analyst Ali Martinez. He says TD sequential flashes a buy signal on XRP. Looks like the rebound is about to begin. So signs of optimism there as well. And this one's always fun. This is from chart analyst CW, just from this morning. XRP liquidated most of its short positions. Yep, that sounds about right. And I like this response to it. Somebody named X Finance Bull responded and wrote, "That's what happens when you bet against utility. Burned." Yes. Can you imagine betting against one of the most useful cryptocurrencies ever created? What a stupid ass idea. Just by holding spot, you can get wild, life-changing wealth, and people won't just do that. They have gambling problems, effectively, because that's what that is. I view it as basically the same damn thing here. But yeah, the final expansion, it's coming. Double-digit price action for XRP. Not crazy if we get that. I don't find that remotely unreasonable to speculate about. The best is yet ahead. There's major confluence based on tons of metrics. Love to see what's happening, just on a macro scale. So that's why I'll say, even if the handful of analysts I follow that think we're going to see a short-term pullback are correct, that's fine. So if that happens, don't be caught off guard. But it's not a guarantee that it's going to happen. And it doesn't break structure even if it does. Because again, those analysts that are talking about the short-term pullback, if we get it, they still think on the whole we're going higher here. And based on historic precedent, that's the thing that's most probable anyway. So I don't know why you wouldn't think that's more likely. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.